What's up, everybody? It's Lee. Really excited for this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. We've got a really special guest today. NHL legend Danny Brière is joining us today, one of the most prolific point scorers in the playoffs in NHL history. But we have this awesome opportunity to interview him as Danny Brière, hockey dad. He has 3 sons that play hockey, another son that's just been born. And we were able to dive into her journey as a hockey parent, as an NHL player through most of it, and then now serving as the assistant to the GM of an NHL team. So this is an incredible interview for multiple reasons. One is Danny Brière was a hero of mine growing up, especially in my late teen years. And they always say, don't meet your heroes. And I'll tell you what, I'm really happy to have met him because he lived up to it. He's also one of the most humble and wonderful people in the world. And that's kind of well known across the hockey universe. But you're going to love this episode with Danny Brière, I think, as much as we did, Christy, Mike, and I doing it. Also, we're here to announce kind of a new friendly partnership here with the Coaches site. So we love what the Coaches site do. They're the premier online coaching resource trusted by top organizations around the world. They get NHL coaches on and top names in the game to help with the development of coaches. So if you're a coach, you're going to want to check this out. But more importantly, if you're a parent and you are looking for that gift for the holidays, we've got a great offer here for you today. So listeners of Our Kids Play Hockey, you can get 25% off an annual membership by using the code PLAYHOCKEY. So again, if you're a coach or a parent of a player who wants to reward their child's coach, don't miss out again. Again, you're going to go to thecoachessite.com and use the code PLAYHOCKEY to get 25% off an annual membership. That's quite a bit. It's very gracious of them. Again, they love what we do. We love what they do. And just remember, this membership unlocks over 500 hours of educational videos, 750 drills, practice plans, thousands of articles breaking down the game, latest tactics, systems in the game. I am a subscriber, full disclosure. I know Mike does a lot of work with them. It is a wonderful resource for your hockey journey. And again, they appreciate what we do. We appreciate what they do, which is why one of the reasons we're kind of fusing together for this episode. So check that out, thecoachessite.com. Again, use Play Hockey for 25% off your subscription, or a great gift for your coaching staff as we move forward towards the holidays. So without further ado, let's get to Danny Brière in this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Thanks for listening to this, and we'll talk to you soon. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. I'm Lee Elias, and I'm joined by my 2 great friends, Christy Casciano-Burns and Mike Benelli, and it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our very special guest today. And some of you may know him from his incredible ability to produce in the NHL playoffs, while others may know him as someone who defied the odds throughout his entire career, which included 18 NHL seasons. He is a 4-time gold medalist with Team Canada in international competition and is the current special assistant to the general manager of the Philadelphia Flyers. Ladies and gentlemen, Danny Brière is with us today. Danny, it's really an honor. Welcome to Our Kids Play Hockey.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, again, it goes both ways. And listen, while I loved being able to introduce you as an NHL legend, the truth is, for the purposes of this show, you're also a very proud father of 4 boys. Your son, Kalen, most recently played for the University of Alabama. Your son, Carson, plays for Mercyhurst University. Your son, Cameron, most recently played for the University of Southern Maine. And your youngest son, Caden, was born in March. So we're going to give him a chance to walk before we get into his hockey career.
That's right.
But yeah, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Your 3 older boys all grew up in the Philadelphia youth hockey scene. So this is how I'm going to phrase this. Tell us about Danny Brière, hockey dad.
Yeah, that's interesting. I tried. I mean, I got involved in coaching here and there. My favorite was definitely watching from afar. And to be honest with you, I liked watching kind of by myself, making my own opinion. I would say I'm probably on the quieter side when I would watch the boys, but certainly enjoyed watching them playing minor hockey. I got involved with some of the teams as well, with all 3 boys at different stages, different age group, into coaching as well. And I did enjoy that a lot. But I would say I probably preferred watching.
It's so funny. So one of the organizations I work with up here in Connecticut, Marty St. Louis is there with his kids. He was. He's not around as much anymore. But it's funny when you look at guys like him and yourself, and the overwhelming majority of pros, you don't see the ex-pro guys, hanging over the glass and screaming at the officials and throwing water bottles in the stands. And there usually are the guys and their wives are just the ones that kind of sit in the corner, watch the game, understand. And we talk about this all the time, is that that sports is a process, and at any given second of their career is not going to make or break them. It's just just enjoy these moments with your kids. You get to relive it again, I guess, for you. But but it's really such a short time frame. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what are some of the things that you do, because obviously you're a very competitive person. You're a fierce gladiator at the highest level. So what did you do even in your playing days? Like what were you able to do as a dad, watching those games and centering yourself in the fact that it wasn't you out there playing?
I'll be honest that it's a lot more stressful because you don't have control over anything that's happening on the ice. When the kids, it's a lot more nerve-wracking watching as a dad than it is playing a game in the NHL. So, because at least I had a little bit of control. I could go on the ice and do something about it. I could get angry. I could get mad. I could, get fiery. But when the kids are playing, you have no control. So, I think, we understand and we see all the crazy hockey parents, but the majority of the parents understand that, and then, they're very well mannered in the rink. But unfortunately, there's the few parents here and there that ruin it for a lot of people. But overall, I've always had great relationships with other parents around the rink. Obviously, there's always a lot of questions as far as how did you get there? What can I do to give my son the best chance, or son or daughter to get to the furthest level they can get to? And my answer to that was always listen to them. They'll tell you how much they want it. You can't teach passion, and that's the one thing that everybody has to remember. You can't teach passion. You can't force it into them. If they really want it, they'll go above and beyond what's needed and what needs to be done to get to the next level. If they're not, if they're just playing for fun, they'll do what's needed and get on with their lives. And you have to respect that also.
Funny you should mention how did you get there and your son, because this is my son, Joey. He's a huge fan of yours, and he just texted me a couple of questions. He's older now. Okay. He's actually studying for his MBA at Kelly University in Indiana. So he texted me a question which will set up why he's asking this, not kind of atypical of a former pro hockey player. Here he goes. I personally dreamed of being an NHL front office more than even being an NHL player. So he's curious, how did you start to make that transition? And what do you think has made you so successful in the roles, business interest, or more on the personal side with player interactions?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I didn't dream of doing that growing up. My mindset was on being a player. And so it kind of came in late for me. But when I retired from the NHL, I was with the Avalanche in my last year, but I had played 6 full years in Philadelphia with the Flyers, and created a really good relationship with Paul Holmgren, who was at the time the president of the team. And when I retired, he called me in for lunch and asked me, if I'd be interested in kind of learning what he was doing as a president. And that was not on the hockey side. And at first I assumed that I would, become not so much in coaching. I knew I didn't want to be a coach, but I assumed, maybe start in either scouting or player development and kind of climb up that way. But it was more on the administration side. And I was kind of surprised a little bit, didn't know where that was going. So that's where I started. They gave me the chance, the Flyers gave me the chance to spend time for 2 years with each and every department, and I could go as much or as little as I wanted. And I would go in and learn about, one day I spend time with our CFO, and then the next week I'd come back and spend time with the sales group, and then it would be the marketing group, and then it would be learn a little bit more on social media and how they attack that game day presentation or the website. So I got to learn on a bunch of different little things here and there, or different departments. And then Comcast, Spectacor, who also owned the Flyers, decided to buy an ECHL team and asked me if I'd be interested in running the team. The exciting part was that I would also be in charge of the hockey side. So I would still learn some more on the business side, and be able to run the hockey side of the team. So that was very exciting. But I realized too that in the business world, it was really tough to understand when you talk to ticket salespeople, or you talk to, it could be corporate sales, it could be, the CFOs making budgets. And I realized that I didn't understand the lingo quite well. So I decided myself to take some classes, go back to school for a couple of years, and understand and learn a little bit more, to position myself a little better. It really helped me. I felt a lot more confident in a boardroom after that. And then a few years went by running the Mariners in the ECHL. And then I started getting involved a little bit at the time with the Flyers. I would run some practice during the early COVID days when nobody knew what was going on. So I would chip in and help out here and there. And then, got more and more involved on the player development side, and kind of made my way up that way. But I certainly had a background and a history with the Flyers organization.
That's a fascinating journey. And it's just so interesting that you
I
probably
wasn't,
never dreamed of that.
no,
And
it's
just,
not something that was
yeah,
planned. It's something that kind of, made its course.
it happened.
Yeah, it just happened.
What an unbelievable internship story.
Yeah, it was great. It was,
geez, Louise.
We did shoot some videos of myself early on where I was pretending to learn how a printer would work. I would show up with a hockey stick, and after a few attempts, I would be banging on the printer with the hockey stick. So we had a couple of skits like that were pretty funny.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. They didn't have you gotten the Zamboni though. You stayed in the front office side.
Yeah, I never ventured down the
operations.
High school guys were awesome, but they never let me on the Zamboni.
They would have kicked you out if you didn't know what you were doing anyway. Yeah. Down there. Danny, just stay on this. I want to pull a thread on this real quick. We always talk about how hockey is a vehicle for our kids' growth as human beings, right? That's really the great teacher, whether you get all the way to the NHL or not. And look, I'll never tell a kid whose dream it is to make it to the NHL that they can't do that. If that's your dream, that's your dream. Now, one of the things that you always exuded on the ice it's on my hat, actually, it's grit. Just one of the grittiest players I've ever witnessed, right? How much of your approach to the game transferred to your approach to the maybe front office side of the game? Like you said, I went back to school and I studied and I did this stuff, because I've always kind of seen it as everything's hockey if you want it to be, right? So how much of that played into your ability to do what you're doing now?
I think I grew up with a chip on my shoulder about being, the smallest player on every team that I played on, and always being told that the next level was not a reality, or, it just wasn't for me. So I always tried to find ways to get through and to make a difference and to prove people wrong. That's always been kind of my thing. I don't know, it was ingrained in me early on, and it's still kind of how I go about it today, even in the front office. That's the approach. I'm going to find a way to get an advantage on, the people across the table or the different teams that we're battling with. That's kind of my goal. It's always about finding an area that I could get an advantage. I remember early even in my NHL days, back in the late 90s, early 2000, the mental side of the game was seen as a weakness. If you worked with a sports psychologist back then, it wasn't a good thing. I was one of the first one at the time, I mean, I didn't tell anyone, you know, I had a sports psychologist and started working. And in my mind, I felt that every time I stepped on the ice, guys beside me might have been bigger, stronger, faster, but I felt I had an edge. I had an advantage because I was better prepared mentally against them. So that's just an example of anything I could find to make a difference, to get a little bit of an edge on the guys in front of me. That's what I tried to do.
And now you see teams with sports psychologists, even on the college level.
Yeah, everywhere. Every player is nowadays, it seems,
there we go.
Psychologist.
My son also wants to know what your workouts were like when you trained with one of Canada's strongest men. What was that like?
Early in my career, again, being a smaller guy, I needed to at least being able to compete. I needed, obviously, to be the fastest, or felt I needed to get as fast as I could get, as strong as I could get. But I knew even with that, I wouldn't be, you know, the strongest. It'd still be kind of a weakness because I was smaller. Early on in my career, I trained with T.R. Goodman in LA. He had a lot of NHL players, notably Chris Chilios. That's where he would train for so many years. So that's where I trained for a few years, but I had the kids early on. We started a family early on, and I wanted to come back home and train at home in Gatineau. And Hugo Girard, who was one of the strongest men in the world, was from Gatineau. My dad knew him a little bit, and he approached him to see if there was a good trainer that I could train with in the summertime. And he said he'd like to do it himself. So to his credit, you know, he kind of looked at what I needed, what hockey players needed, and came up with a program. And we sat down, and he shared with me his thoughts. You know, and the part that I liked is everything was a challenge. And what I mean by that is, if you go to the gym and you get in front of a machine and the trainer tells you, okay, give me 10 reps here, you'll do it. Well, with Hugo, it was always about, it was either time, it was distance, or it was an amount of reps that was as far as you could go. So everything was pushed to the limit. And he would always tell me, his thing was, you know, pain is not going to stop you. Your body will tell you when it's time to stop. Meaning, you know, you're going to fall, you're going to puke, you're going to push yourself to the limit. So I don't know that I would recommend that to just everybody. It really needs to be a special, if a hockey player wants to train that way, it needs to be someone that's willing to go above and beyond and really has a passion and will do anything to get to that limit, and is not afraid to push themselves above and beyond. So that's what I wanted. And that's one of the things I told Hugo. I said, I don't want to just play in the NHL. I want to be a difference maker. Can you help me get there? And he says, well, it's going to be tough. You're going to have to push hard, but I can push you there. And a lot of the training parts were, like I said, distance, timed. You always had to beat what you had done, you know, the previous week. So we had a workout for the week. And when you came back the following week, if you went, you know, 200 meters with, you know, the farmer's walk that they call, with dumbbells on each side, well, the following week you had to beat that. If it was, you know, well, what did we do? I didn't raise the rocks, the big, huge rocks that they carry around. But I did pull a car.
You pulled a car?
I flipped tires. Yeah, so it was
pulled a car.
He had all kinds of strongman equipment in there that we could toy with, and he was very creative with his exercises.
You know, one of the things I like, sorry, Lee, one of the things I like too, that you mentioned right at the beginning, and this is maybe like more of the cautionary tale, that he didn't train you in his training. He trained you for what you needed. Like he didn't fit you into a strongman box. He fit you into, here's a way a hockey player needs to train in my environment. And I think that's really important for young, you know, kids to understand, is that it's not about having the beach body or having this other, you know, the you know, being able to lift, you know, dead weights, you know, multiple times, if it doesn't affect you in your game. And I love the fact that he saw that, and you trusted, and your father at the time trusted that he's going to train you in a way that's going to help you because he's going to cater the training to you.
Right, because there's so many programs now that it's one size fits all, and that's really not the case.
No.
Yeah.
You guys are right. It's a very good point, Mike. You know, he studied what we needed, and when we sat down, I still remember he said, "We're going to push your core and your legs are the two most important parts that we're going to focus on." And then I would stay around. The fun part is I would do my training, and then I would stay around and watch their training, which was super impressive. But the one area I was able to help them was the cardio side. Obviously, they don't, you know, run as much or don't do as much cardio. So I did my own cardio, came up with my own game plan there. And Hugo would actually do a lot of the stuff with me, and it was good for him as well.
Yeah, awesome.
I want to mention to our audience that's listening to this, Danny's had a smile on his face the entire time he's been talking about this training. And I think that's an important thing to note. And I'll tell you why. And Danny, I first, I want to tell you, I appreciate you bringing up that you put your mental fitness first at a time when there was a huge stigma surrounding that. And I think this actually all wraps together. One of the things I love, and I was writing notes here, there was a mental awareness there, even if you weren't fully aware of it, of pushing your limits in that training. And too often in society, and this could be with grades, it could be with a job, it could even be with hockey coaching, we put people in these boxes and say, there's your limits, 10 reps, like you said. And it sounds like what he was training you to do is you don't have limits. In fact, you don't even know your limits. You're just going to continually push them. When you look at your career, it's incredibly apparent, right? So it just seems like from a young age, you were willing to push those limits. You did not allow any of these walls that were created to stop you. And then you said it before, you had a desire and a fire to do this. And I do want to revisit that because you said it, you can't really teach that. That is developed and you have it or you don't. So even in this style of training, right? If someone doesn't want to do it, they're not going to do it. You clearly wanted this, right? So could you just tie this back in again to kind of the mental aspect of this and the mental fitness and how important that is? Because that's something I'm a mental health advocate. You know, I think that we want to discuss more and more through this platform.
Yeah. And, you know, and it's something I mean, I had it in me, and all I wanted to be growing up was a hockey player. There's no other thing I wanted to do, and I was willing to go through the wall to get there. And then, you know, and then I had my boys, and then they started playing, you know, involved in hockey. And obviously at first I wanted them to be, you know, hockey players. And I realized that they didn't all have, you know, the willingness to, or this, I guess, the same passion to get to that goal as much as I did. And I had heard all the stories and the crazy parents. And that's when I realized that, you know, everybody's different. And, you know, you can't push it on them if they don't want to. It's really, it's got to come from the inside. It's got to come from them. And my only thing was I would give them all the tools. I would, you know, try to help them as much as they wanted. But at the end of the day, they would have to do the work and push themselves to the limit to get as far as they could get.
I think so many parents fail to see that, you know, they want a certain, you know, hockey player. This is what you're going to be. And it's so smart to just step away and say, okay, here's all the tools. Now, if you choose it, great. And if you don't, that's okay too. Be who you need to be who you want to be. So many parents fail to recognize that.
Mm-hmm. But in fairness, I knew how hard it was to get there and to stay there. You know, sometimes we might think that, you know, playing the NHL, if you work hard, you're going to get there. But the reality is that still very few get to that point. And I really think that there was a lot of luck involved in my path, you know, as far as injuries and finding, you know, the coaches that believe in you and push you the right way and giving you the chances. So there's a lot of luck involved as well. So like I said, I was lucky. I knew how hard it was, or it is, to get there. And, you know, maybe if you don't, I guess sometimes you think it might be easy. But I would support them as much as they wanted to. And like I said earlier, try to give them the tools to go as far as they wanted to.
Yeah. I was thinking, let's put your work hat back on then, right? So is that something you have found as now a GM and a front office person and a player, somebody that has to recognize players and the people we have, actually just recently we've talked to some scouts and hockey professionals and is that something you have to really interview and do your homework about? Yeah, you're a great hockey player, but do you have that passion? Like, are you going to be able to really get through the ups and downs of what an NHL career is, or take the stardom and use it the right way and under, because I think it's great that you come from just a different perspective from that front office, because I'm sure you lived a lot of those questions in your own career. So I think, is this something you put into your kind of repertoire of how you select players?
We'd like to, but it's so hard. It's so hard to find out who really those players that are willing to go. Everybody will tell you that they are willing to go above and beyond, to achieve their dream. It's finding out who's really willing to do the work. Everybody is trying to find that edge of the players that are they want to get through the wall to get there. And one thing I realized, and looking over my career too, it's not, we think sometimes that the loudest kid that, will scream from the roof, that, will do anything to get there. But I remember myself, I was a super quiet, shy kid that didn't speak very loud. So I think if I would look at myself when I interviewed at 17, 18 years old for the NHL draft, I'm not so sure I would have been convinced that, I could, or I would have been willing to push the way I did. So it's so tough to find out. So you got to give everybody a chance. And but I see it in every day. There's players at the training center that you see how much work they put into, and then sometimes you see some players that are a lot more talented, but they just don't have that fight in them, to get to be the best player they can be.
And I used to hate those guys, because they're the guys that were so gifted. You're like, are you kidding me? Like, come on, you have this gift. Do something with that. And it is, but you're absolutely right. I think that's your advanced scouting and your ability to watch these. We talk on the show a lot about, that you're not just watching a kid in his best moments. You got to find these players in their worst moments, and in practice when they're frustrated, and talk with their coaches and talk with their youth coaches and find out, like, what did this player do when he played on that team that was 5 and 35. I think that's just the makeup of who you become in your body of work, and that really exposed itself. I guess in your case, maybe sometimes too late, right? You get a kid and you're like, oh my God, we just gave this kid a contract, and now, what are we going to do with this kid for a couple of months, or a couple of years? So it's interesting. And I think we love talking to parents about that your whole body of work is really what you're presenting, when you get to the highest level.
I really love looking at players, and I guess you could do in any walks of life, but I really love when I'm scouting someone. I want to see them when they're struggling. I want to see them when they're going through a tough time, and that tells you a lot more than when the player is being the best he can be, and he's the best player on the ice, and everything's going well, and he's smiling, and he's confident, and he's having a blast. You'll learn a lot more about him when things are tough.
What does it tell you about that individual?
Character, first of all. In character, because we can see the talent level, we can see how they skate, how they shoot, how hard they work on the ice, but when things are tough, you see the real character. And when you're building a team, I feel character, building that right culture, and we're going through that with the Flyers right now. We're trying to rebuild that, and you need character guys around the room to be able to do that. I feel that your leaders need to have a lot of character to have a chance to win a Stanley Cup. So I want to see those guys when they struggle. Well, how do they react?
Important to note for parents who are listening right now, where they're pumping all this money into training and coaches and showcases. Character is just as important.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah,
I was gonna
totally agree.
On that note, Christy, right? What Danny's talking about, where do you get that, right? And again, for all of us as parents, that's on us to help develop that, right? And
Exactly.
I think the reflection is for everyone listening, including myself, is okay, when your son or daughter is going through a tough moment, how are you responding to that? Because they're going to learn from you how to respond. Or if a teammate is going through a tough moment, you know, where's the accountability going? Are you blaming the teammate? Are you blaming the goalie? Are you blaming everybody else? So there's a lot of questions there that I think we all need to reflect on. Danny, I want to bring back to something you said at the beginning of the episode. I think you might have had one of the greatest quotes in the history of the show, which was, sometimes watching my kids play was harder than playing in the NHL. Definitely going to make that a micro clip. But it's funny because I would say this, my son's an 8U right now. I played my whole life. I've coached most of my adult life, and you affirm people in my position, I think. And Mike and Christy have been coaching me through this because I'm kind of the newest hockey dad here. But I find myself kind of going to corners of the rink now to watch and being quiet, right? And just observing and kind of making sure that my son's smiling out there. That's really what I look for. And it's not that competing isn't important. It is, but I want to make sure he's in love with what he's doing, whether it's hockey or anything else. I want to tell you this. I'm not sure if you know this, but one of the things about you that always stood out to me, and everybody knew who you were as a hockey player when you played here, but I actually remember hearing you were a great dad a lot. Like, I remember hearing that a lot, and you transcended just being a Flyer or a Sabre or, you know, an Avalanche at the time. And just remember hearing about you being a great dad. So I want to know, A, are you aware of that? You know, and B, how does that make you feel? That's the question you're never supposed to ask, but I'm asking.
Believe me, I would always question myself about that. You know, it's not easy, and it's tough. And there's things that I've done that I regret over the years as a hockey dad. You know, and I'm even now I have the chance, maybe if he's willing to be a hockey player, to do it again. You know, and I always question myself, what am I going to change? How am I going to approach certain situation to handle certain things a little better, you know, over the years. So there's always room for improvement. You can always learn. That's the way I see it. I mean, I had a blast. I loved it. I loved the minor hockey part of it. You know, it was fun coaching. It was fun watching. It was fun being there with them. You know, and I look back at my own career and my minor league career growing up. Like, there's so many great memories. And when I see, you know, some of my ex-teammates that I grew up with, you know, and we still talk about, you know, certain tournaments we went through, and, you know, certain championships that we went through in certain cities, and the memories of that are what's so cool. And that's what I hope that my own kids had the chance to experience, and hopefully the next one, you know, will also have the chance to experience. You said it yourself, Lee. You want your son to have fun. Well, you know, I think that's, as a dad or as a mom, that's probably the most important part.
I was wondering if we could also talk about injuries, another part of the game. My daughter plays college hockey, and she's coming off an injury right now. She had a hip labrum tear, which apparently is pretty common with hockey players. Boy, it's really tough to battle back from injuries. I know you've dealt with them. Maybe you can share some advice for players out there on how to plow through and not get so discouraged when you're down and sidelined because of an injury.
Yeah, and I've seen some major injuries with my especially my oldest had a broken femur at one point. That was tough. You know, what you try to encourage is to stay involved with the team. Teammates are very important. They can help out a lot. But as a parent, I think you can do a lot by, even if he's injured, to bring him to the rink so they can spend time, be at the rink with their teammates. I always felt that's where I felt the best. You know, and over the years, even for myself, when either I had injuries or I couldn't get to play, the rink was my safe haven, basically. That was the place that I could get away, just think about hockey and not worry about anything else that was going on. And not just injuries, but also, you know, sometimes you might have a tough time off the ice. You might have some issues that you're dealing with. Being at the rink for me was my escape. That was the best place I could be, even in tough times.
Yeah, I know you got to read Christy and Lee's book, and it was about, you know, getting like a horrible injury at the beginning of the year. My son actually went through that. I mean, it was almost, the book was written as him. I think he's like, did they write this book like during my injury? But it was just, but it's really funny. But I think that the point was really that there's other, like, to lean on other people that have gone through these injuries and understand that, well, look, this person had this horrible injury and they're back playing again, and they're functioning, and they're working hard to, you know, rebuild, you know, kind of their confidence and getting back out there. They're not going to get hurt again. And I think that's maybe, you know, I'd like to hear a little bit about that from you, knowing that, you know, you are coming back from injury. You know, how do you put that out of your mind? Like, what kind of work do you do to say, okay, I got through this injury, I feel great. And I mean, you just, as a pro hockey player, there has to be a part of you that has to be able to put that away somewhere.
Yeah. So I think it goes back a little bit to what I was saying earlier. I saw it as a chance to improve something else. So if it was an injury in the season that I would be out, you know, for, let's say, 6 weeks, well, while everybody is still skating and improving, it gave me the chance to go in the gym and maybe work on something else that normally I wouldn't have time to do. So if there's a lower body injury, well, I would try to, and it gave me the chance doing that, kind of shift the focus a little bit, focus on something else, even if it's, you know, for a short amount of time. Because I remember, you know, when you have injuries, that's all you think about. It's, when can I get back? When am I skating? When can I practice with the team? When can I play my first game? And obviously there's a lot of, you compare a lot. What's this player when he had this injury? How long was he out? So you want to have that, and you want to try to beat that. But at the same time, it's an opportunity to improve somewhere else. You know, either in the gym, it could be off the ice, it could be the mental side, but you have an opportunity to, you know, get an edge somewhere else.
Yeah, this goes back to what you said earlier, like you said, finding a way. You have to find a way, right? And by the way, thanks for the endorsement on the book, Danny. That meant a lot to us. But and again, like
that was a great story, and yeah, a little bit of what I was saying about how, you know, even through an injury, he finds a way to get involved and stay within the team and still help the team win. So that was a great book. That was awesome.
Oh, thank you, sir. I do appreciate that. I'm very proud to have written that with my friend Christy here. And again, look, for the parents listening, right, there's always opportunity. I think it's also important that we note that not all injuries are physical, right? We talked about this, that we have to build the mental fitness in addition to the physical fitness. And that's something that I think we're going the right direction on now as a society, especially after the last few years. I think we've all kind of realized we all had to take a moment and kind of look inside our own minds. But it's all the same in terms of finding a way and finding the people, finding the help. You know, no one does this alone. Just Danny, bringing this back in just to hockey parents real quick. You know, because I know that the listening audience loves hearing about your stories as a dad. You know, one of the best parts about the show is the feedback and the letters and the notes we get from so many parents and coaches that can relate to the crazy side of youth hockey, right? And I'm bringing it up because you said it earlier. Most parents are probably pretty good, right? We always say there's no perfect parents, right? We all pretty much care about our kids more than anything, right? Especially the passionate ones probably care about their kids more than anything. And again, we like to believe that all parents genuinely have their kids' best interest at heart. But with that said, what would your advice be to a hockey parent that wonders, am I doing it right? And again, you started to dive into this a little bit before, right? Yeah. How would you answer that question? Am I doing okay as a parent?
I remember getting a lot of questions, and even to this day, about summer hockey. You know, should I let my son, he wants to play 12 months of the year, should I let him play, you know, hockey in the summertime? And, you know, my answer to that is, let him talk to you. Is it what you want, or is it what he wants?
Right.
Ask him the question. And obviously, you know, if he's 6 years old, I would say probably not at that time. Let him enjoy other sports. I'm a big believer in trying all sports and giving him the chance to touch on different things. But at the end of the day, if they keep coming back after year, and they it's coming from them that they want to play summer hockey, you know, yeah, let him play. If that's what he loves, that's what he wants. I probably started, playing summer hockey around 10 years old. And there's nothing else. I would rather be in an ice cold rink in the middle of the summer than being on a baseball field.
I can relate to that.
So all kids are different. Same thing with billeting. Check with your kid. Your kid will tell you if they're ready to leave the. I left my house. I left my parents at 13 years old and moved away to go play hockey. Well, I looked at my kids, and one was ready, the other two probably not. So you should know your own kid and see if that's something that they want to do and they're willing to do. Listen to them. I think sometimes we don't listen to the kids enough. They'll tell you what they want and what they need.
I think that's a fantastic point, Danny. And I think you're right. A lot of times like it's hard for me. I'm a podcast host. I talk a lot. A lot of times I have to tell myself, and again, these two have taught me this a lot. Don't talk in the car ride home unless he wants to talk about it. Right. Because 9 times out of 10, actually 10 times out of 10, he just wants to talk about Pokemon or Minecraft or something anyway.
That's right.
Right. So
you learned a valuable lesson there.
Right. Oh, I'm
car coaching.
I am thankful for this team every week. Right? It's like my evolution. The other thing too is that, explaining the life lessons to him of the language I use of, well, that kid didn't pass to me, and not putting it on the other kid. Well, what can we do to inspire that player to pass, or what can you do to help him, or what can he or she do to help you? And those types of conversations are what I really love to dive into. So Danny, last question for me, and then Mike and Christy, I'll let you kind of have the final word. We talk about all the time, we hear all the time about making hockey more diverse, hockey's for everyone, all these terms. You come from French Canada, right? French Canadian here.
Yep.
We want to grow the game, right? I would just love your take on, from a gender point of view, a race point of view, a country point of view, how are we doing with that, and how can we be better?
I mean, that's a good question. I think there's been improvement, but I think we're probably far from where we should be still. I love that there's more and more women and girls playing hockey. Again, we just had the women's, world championship. And again, like, those games are fantastic. Hopefully in a few years, we have more countries, and it's not always just Canada and the US in the championship game, but those games are amazing, and the rivalry that they've created. We're seeing more and more, people of color in the game. And I think that's great. And I think it's fantastic. And I hope it keeps growing more and more. I think it's just good for the game.
Christy, Mike, what do you got? I don't want to.
All right. I got a couple more Joey questions.
Go for it.
He's texting away now.
I should just put his little face up here.
You can't tell she's gushing here, Danny. She's gushing. I love it.
He's such a big fan. All right, here we go. You have insane playoff stats. I think he's like 1 point shy of Gretzky record for points in the Stanley Cup playoff series. How is he able to elevate, he already has very high level of play, another gear in the playoffs?
I don't know. I wish I had a better answer, an answer that everybody would be blown away. I don't have anything special for it. The stuff that I come up with is, I grew up where the playoffs were the best time of the year. I still feel that way. I grew up where my dad would have, back then with the different conference would play on different nights, and we would have 4 TVs set up for round 1, and watch all 4 games at the same time. That's how I grew up. And playoff hockey was very important in our house. So maybe there's a special drive. I remember going to bed and growing up and dreaming, going to bed, and before falling asleep, that I was dreaming that I would be, the guy scoring a playoff overtime goal. That was something that I, during the playoffs, almost every night going to bed, one day I'm going to score an overtime playoff game goal. That was something that I had in mind, and I was fortunate to do it. One of the greatest, feeling that I've ever had. So, other than that, I talked about getting an edge earlier. So I was someone that studied a lot. my opponents. So on nights that I didn't play, I would sit home and I would watch, the goalies or the defensemen that I would face. Which side are they turning better? Which side, when they get the puck behind the net, what's their tendency? Do they want to go up the strong side? Do they like to reverse it? So, try to get an edge on stealing a puck maybe from them. Who's weak, who's strong.
So you're like sizing everybody up all the time.
That's
wow.
what I would do.
Literally, yeah.
So if you think about it, when you play in a regular season, you're playing a different team every night. So it's really tough to remember the tendencies of every single player and really adjust and take advantage of them. While in the playoffs, when you're facing the same team for 4 to 7 games, you get more knowledge on the different players every game, on how they react to certain areas. And I feel, again, that was an edge. That was, for me, being a smaller player, that was an area where I could get an edge on knowing my opponents better, how they would do certain things, and try to take advantage of it. So I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you guys.
I thought that was a great answer.
Let me ask this. Let me ask this, Christy. And sorry, I know I said I was going to ask, but Danny, I got to pull the thread on this. Did you feel fear in those playoff moments? And I don't mean like the fear of just losing I mean fear. Or do you feel like you were raised in a way that wasn't there? Because I find that amongst high performers such as yourself is that it's not, I'm playing not to, I'm not afraid to screw up here. The fear wasn't there because it wasn't developed, right? Is that sound?
Yeah, no. So I think early on, so there's 2 things there. First of all, early on in my career, minor hockey, I don't feel super comfortable going there because I don't like to talk about myself, but I was very fortunate to experience some great moments where I was able to make a difference on my teams, scoring a big goal, making a big play, or stuff like that growing up. So I kind of was able to build early on that quiet confidence.
Right.
But the other side of it too, when I got to the NHL, it's something that you can learn. I didn't have it early on, and I don't know that it was fear. I think I was a little bit frozen at times in the big moments, in the big games. And I remember my first World Championship, World Junior Championship finals, and the World Championship in 2002 in Finland. We played Sweden in the finals, and I remember, the whole afternoon not sleeping, being nervous that you're representing your country, you're playing for the championship game, and coming to the game being completely exhausted because I played the game in the afternoon being nervous and thinking about it rather than waiting for the game to happen. So I learned from that. And, later on in my career, I think I learned how to manage that side of it, the emotions of it. I would, try to get away during the day, not think about the game. And then the other part of it was that whenever those moments came, and again, that's very, I don't know, I feel like I'm not promoting myself, but like it's an ego thing. But I really felt that I was built for that moment. So if we got to an overtime game in the playoffs, in my mind, even if I played crappy the whole game, to me, in my mind, I would start the overtime thinking, well, okay, that's just to give me a chance to save the day. That's the approach I had. That's just how I was thinking about it.
Right.
It was, in my mind, everything was just made, setting up the table for me to make a difference. That's how I was. So I wasn't thinking about the downside. I wasn't thinking about being afraid. In my mind, it was just meant for me to make a difference.
No, and that's what I was trying to draw out, is that absence of fear. And look, just so you know, Matt, you're one of the most humble people I have ever met. And it didn't come across at all like you're being pompous or egotistical there. I think that's just a fantastic lesson for parents and kids to hear, that, the understanding of, the compartmentalization of emotion and understanding how to rise up in big moments. And this goes beyond hockey, right? So I do
But I
appreciate
hope-
you doing that. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
what I hope that people remember from this is that you can develop that.
Right.
I didn't have it early in my career, in my pro career, but it's something that you can work at.
Yeah, I appreciate you making yourself a little vulnerable there, Danny. I wasn't trying to make you uncomfortable in any way.
No, not at all.
So
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Mike, any final words before we kind of start to close this out?
No, that was great. I mean, I just wanted to say like that is the fear, right? You have to, as a coach and as a parent, you don't want a cocky kid, but you have to have kids that really feel self-confident. You've got, like, I want a kid on the bench that wants to be on the ice for the last minute of play.
Right.
Like, tell me, like, I want you begging me to be on the ice. Like, give me that piece of you. And if you fail and I'm okay with you failing, that just breeds your ability to find out if you can be that kid. But if you're somebody that's like, I'm not going to give this kid a chance, like, I don't believe in him, then how's a player going to believe in themselves?
Yeah.
And where's the best time to do it? Probably not in the Stanley Cup playoffs in Game 7, but maybe when you're 10, maybe when you're 11. That's in a game in the middle of December might be the best time for you to allow that player to experience the opportunity to capture that moment. Yeah. And I think I get in my job, I get to be around a lot of really successful NHL alum. And I think I think when I talk to them privately, it's that inner confidence. It's that ability to say, well, no, why would I fail? I'm going to succeed. Like, I don't fail. And if I do fail, it's really just, I move on to the next thing and I try to succeed. So I think that's a very unique piece of why high performing athletes get to where they get, because they're not thinking about the failure. They're thinking about the glory. And like you going to sleep saying, well, no, I've never dreamed about hitting the post in the Stanley Cup final to lose the game. I've always dreamed about lighting the lamp. Yeah. And that's where we are now. Like Lee actually just did a post recently and was interacting with the whole idea of visualization and being in the moment and creating the atmosphere that you've been there before. And you learn to do that. You just said it right at the beginning. It's like, oh my God, I'm so fearful that I'm representing my country and I'm going to fail. Instead, you were able to turn it around and refocus that energy and to put yourself in a very positive light. I think goalies have always been taught that, but the everyday player hasn't. Yeah. And I think we're getting there where all athletes need to visualize that.
Right.
My thing was, well, if I fail, it's the next team is very unlucky because the odds just went up that I'm going to succeed the next time.
Absolutely played that way.
And we can,
awesome.
I'm going to say we can only hope for kids to be like you, Danny, who are confident, but also elevate others. And I'm really excited that I got to know you. And now I know why my son thinks of you as, one of his heroes, and he just admires you so much. In fact, he just texted again and he said, please tell them if he has any open positions in the front office, I'll be done with my MBA in the spring of 2024.
All right, perfect.
Get that resume done.
Yeah. We might need the resume. I'll say hi, and I appreciate the support.
Awesome.
Danny, I'll finish so on this. I think it's only fair, we've been talking about kind of the Danny Brière ecosystem here, and again, I love what you said just about, not really caring about what your limits were and finding those and pushing them. But the truth is, you'd be the first person to admit you don't do this without great teammates, without great coaches. Could you just touch on that momentarily?
Exactly.
Just about
that how teamwork is so vital.
You were not alone
with that.
Yeah,
you were not alone in
this
journey. Yeah,
and to me, that's one of the best part about hockey is you get to do it with teammates, with friends. That there's nothing better. I mean, even awards, winning awards for me was never had the same feeling because you'd win an award for, I don't know, best player in the game. And that never really meant very much to me because it singles you out. The best part is winning a championship when you get to share with everybody and everybody on the team being so excited. So that's the best part about hockey and the lessons it teaches the kids. That's why I love the sport so much. But yeah, the teammates, the coaches, the people willing to give their time, the parents. My parents did a lot. I mean, without them, I never would have had the chance to play. Yeah, it's a great sport, but it's the teamwork that comes with it that is really so special. And I hope that stays with my kids for the longest time, and that the next one hopefully experiences as well.
Danny, we've done a lot of episodes of this show. This one's a highlight for me. It was fantastic to have you here tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Me
guys.
too. Thank you so much.
I can't thank you enough for being here, man.
Thank you so much, guys. It was fun. I don't have the chance to do very many talks on, kids and hockey parents and growing up. So this is pretty cool.
Well, you can be a weekly member if you want. We'll have you back. No.
All right. That's good.
Okay. That's going to do it for this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Remember, every single episode we've ever done is on ourkidsplayhockey.com or whatever podcast server you're listening on. You can find it there. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend, share it in your team snap, give us a 5-star review. Make sure that you follow up and let us know. And as always, feel free to email us. We get a ton of emails every week at team@ourkidsplayhockey.com. We'd love to hear from you. Hopefully inspire Danny to come on for another episode, because we get so many questions. They're all going to be from Christy's son, but who cares? That's going to do it, friends. Thanks so much. For Christy Casciano Burns, Mike Benelli, and Danny Brière, I'm Lee Elias. We'll see you next time on Our Kids Play Hockey. Have a great day, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.